listening to The Phillip Jordan Show, a show with compelling conversations on local, SEC, and national sports stories. Connect with Phillip on social media at PJordanSEC. Now, the self-proclaimed Wiregrass Podfather, Phillip Jordan.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show, back on our normal week. Brought to you by Digio Strategies and Wiregrass Daily News. Of course, I'm your host, Phillip Jordan, and in-studio host and producer of Dutchman Football on 96.9, The Legend. On today's show, I'll be joined by Matt Stahl. He is the AL.com Alabama sports reporter. He was there at SEC Media Days in Dallas last week. We'll kind of just talk about SEC Media Days in general, talk about Alabama, what Jalen Milroe said, just some different things that happened there at Media Days. And then after that, I'll kind of go over some Auburn stuff, what happened there as well. We got some Troy content to talk about, some Florida State content to talk about here on the show today. So a lot of stuff going on with SEC Media Days last week, Sunbelt, ACC this week, a lot of interesting stuff. But before we do all that, let you guys know you can find me in the podcast. Find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wiregrass Daily News, just wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you are just a straight up hater. You can check out the show over at my YouTube channel, Phillip Jordan Sports. Go check it out over there. You can email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Check out my written work over at Last Word on college football. Now let's jump into it with AL.com's Matt Stahl. All right, everybody, as promised off the top, I'm joined by Matt Stahl over AL.com, where he covers the Alabama Crimson Tide. A lot of excitement going into this year when it comes to the Tide. We're obviously coming off SEC Media Days from last week, where Matt was there in Dallas. And Matt, appreciate you coming on.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, 100%. You're one of my favorite guys to go to talk all things Alabama. We talked a little bit about this off the air, but just the whole event there in Dallas. How was it last week? Because you were there for multiple days, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I was there the whole thing. Media Days is always a good time. It's more, like I said, off the air. It's more a good time because you kind of get to see all your friends from across the league and drink beer than it is at this point just an opportunity to do anything substantial, I guess, journalistically. And I don't know, this year's probably worse than most because, with a few, really little exceptions, these coaches were just so boring this year. It just not much substance to any of this. So, yeah, it's always a good time out there, but I was pretty happy to get home once it was done.
We always have a coach in the conference that, at Media Days, they're going to say something that's really going to catch you. And just maybe because, obviously, Lane Kiffin, father just passed. I think we expect Lane to be that guy. He wasn't. I thought Jalen Milroe said a lot of things you probably would expect. Nothing. I wouldn't say I was bored by his thing, but also at the same time, nothing that's going to be headlines in the paper or on a website. Was there any standouts? Any players that you maybe thought that kind of stood out when you were there?
Tyler Booker was really, really good for Alabama, and you knew he was going to be because he's just unbelievable. He's the smartest guy in every room. Very funny, very personable. He was good. He had a great line. They asked him about Nick Saban not picking Alabama to be in the SEC championship game, and he, ran out. So he said he's an external factor now. Nick Saban always told him, don't worry about external factors. I think the line was, he always told me not to worry about what some guy in his mom's basement was saying, or don't ever let someone sitting in their mom's basement on a computer affect how you feel. He said, I'm not going to let somebody who plays golf all day affect how I feel. And now, obviously, he was joking, but beyond that, it was pretty tame. The coaches, Sam Pittman had a few good one-liners. I think he, with the NAIA, caught a stray off of Sam Pittman. They introduced him as having played in the NAIA. He's like, yeah, one of my friends was telling me it stands for never an ineligible athlete.
I saw that.
I got a kick out of that. And then other than that, I mean, Eli Drinkwitz said a player had the STI, strength, toughness, and intensity. And it's like, oh boy, that's maybe workshop that one a little bit more, Eli. And then Josh Heupel goes up there, and he meant to pay somebody a compliment. He was trying to say he's like the elder statesman or something, and instead he called the guy the Grand Wizard of the Oklahoma Media Corps, which holds a little different meaning if you're from the South and generally trying to avoid any associations with the Grand Wizards. So that's about all that stuck out to me.
Yeah, it's got to be odd for him being instead of Oklahoma because he didn't necessarily have a good ending to his time at Oklahoma under Bob Stoops when he was there as offensive coordinator. So I can't wait till those kind of clash. And Texas was being Texas, right? I mean, this whole thing. I mean, they're big. They're Texas. They're brash. I know a lot of people. They were talking about SEC Network about Texas people probably thinking they're going to come in and run the SEC like they did the Big 12. And then, of course, Nick Saban kind of knocked that down, saying there's a lot of egos in the SEC. That's not going to happen. But it is kind of seeing that Texas swagger now in the SEC.
Yeah, no, I think Steve Sarkisian did a good job up there. I thought, obviously, Quinn Ewers was there. I thought he did a good job. He had a huge crowd that I did not try and fight through to get any questions into Quinn Ewers. But, I don't know. I think people make too big a thing out of like, oh, Texas fans think they're going to run the SEC. Like, Texas is a good football team. So is Oklahoma. Like, I generally don't like any of this realignment that's happening, but like, I mean, it's going to make for some good football. Texas is really, really good this season. I mean, they were close. They were a Kalen DeBoer Washington team away from playing in the national championship last season. So obviously, I mean, it's harder. Obviously, it's hard for everybody in the SEC. But would I like bet on them to win the league? No, because I probably think it's Georgia's to lose at this point. But like, wouldn't shock me if they did. It certainly wouldn't shock me to see them in the playoff and make a little run in the playoff. Like, it's a really, really good football team that I think is going to find some success in the SEC pretty quick.
Yeah, and what I like that the divisions have been wiped out. We're seeing different SEC matchups. The schedules look different. Some teams have an easier schedule than the others. Ole Miss is one, but it's going to be interesting with that, and then getting to that point when we get the SEC championship. And with Alabama, it seemed like when Kalen DeBoer hit the podium, of course, really Malachi Moore, what he talked about with him being in leadership with that secondary. It kind of ties into what Nick Saban said when he predicted Georgia and Texas, which, I thought was funny too. And I saw the quote Tyler Booker said about Nick Saban saying that. Of course, I'm always interested with that because, okay, how are some Alabama fans going to react to when Nick Saban is critical of Alabama? Are they going to jump on them or what's going to happen there? But just the Malcolm Moore, talking about he being a leader with that secondary. I mean, and that's got to be huge because not a lot coming back on that side of the ball.
No, I mean, they go lose, obviously, Terry and Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, head to the NFL. Caleb Downs, who, I mean, might be the best non-quarterback in college football. Might be the best player in college football. Like, really, really, really talented safety. Transfers to Ohio State, which, I mean, the greatest defensive backs coach of all time is no longer there. So, like, that makes sense. But, yeah, Malachi being there is enormous. I think he's moving to sort of more of a traditional safety role and playing a little bit less of the star than he was. Obviously, new defense with Kane Womack coming in. But Deontay Lawson's another one. Probably Jahad Campbell's one of those. But like some of those guys who have been around for a while are going to play, I mean, just a huge role this year. It's really just a time of transition, and it's a time where it's good to have some of those like real veteran presences, especially in a young secondary like Malachi, to kind of lean on. As I mean, it's not once again, never easy in the SEC. Difficult schedule, a lot of good offenses. So it'd be tricky this year, but he's a good one to have there.
Yeah, you just look at the conference, just how many good teams there are. I mean, not just teams at the top that you think, okay, these are playoff teams, just in the middle, good teams that
Yeah.
can beat a lot of these teams at the top if the right things happen on a given Saturday. Of course, he talked about, Jalen Milroe. Questions going to be asked. I think ever since he took over as head coach, how does Milroe work with his offense? I know he talked a lot about just improving in his pass game. And it seems like, too, when we look at receivers, I think everybody's excited to see what Ryan Williams can do, and I think he did talk about the chemistry he's developing with that incoming freshman receiver. But do you see it being a situation this year where Milroe is going to have to take on a lot more responsibility than he did last year?
Probably, but I think it could also be a situation where Kalen DeBoer coming to Tuscaloosa is the best thing that's ever happened to Jalen Milroe. Like, you look at what he's done with quarterbacks in the past, be it, Jake Hayner at Fresno State. Is Jake Hayner still in the NFL? Got to
I
be,
think
right?
so. I think
He'd
he
still be on
is.
a rookie deal.
If not, he's going to be
And
in the UFL soon, I'm sure.
and obviously last year, Michael Penix Jr., who he coached at both Indiana and at Washington. But Kalen, it's not going to be a thing where he's sort of forced. I don't think this year's offense is going to look exactly like last year's Washington team did. But I just, it just seems like it's a really great situation for Jalen Milroe. Like, maybe he is taking on more responsibility, but I mean, he's got a year as a starter under his belt. He's got weapons around him. The offensive line, I think, should be improved this season. Just in part from guys being a year older. Uh, it's, I don't know. It could be a Heisman year for Jalen Milroe. It really could.
Yeah, I mean, he got his name in the conversation toward the end of last season. If he had kind of had that level of play he had toward the end of this year last year, he really could have been up there in that with them. And it's just going to be interesting. And I think too at Alabama, I think it's hard to really for anybody to say I know exactly what this team is going to be because we just don't know. We don't know. We know what it looked like for DeBoer at Washington and other stops. And we obviously know what it looked like with Saban last year, but different coach, different philosophy. I mean, yes, a lot of the same players, what Saban had, but still how these guys, mix with what DeBoer and his staff wants to do. And I think that's actually one of the more exciting things about Alabama, the newness of it.
Yeah, maybe don't tell Alabama fans that. There's some high degree of anxiety here, but yeah, no, absolutely. It's I didn't vote. I never do. I especially didn't vote this year in the preseason kind of SEC media days poll on where all the teams are going to finish. Because to me, reasonable expectations this year for Alabama are make that 12-team playoff like that. But I mean, would it shock me if they made a run to Atlanta? No. Uh, they're really, really good. They're a really talented team. I think they have really good coaches. I mean, they got a tough schedule. You got to play Georgia, but also, I mean, it also wouldn't shock me if they won 9 games and got left out of it. But yeah, it's just a really, really tricky year for predicting this team, just because, yeah, like you said, you have no idea what it really is, what the new systems are going to look like with these players, and who works under DeBoer, who doesn't work under DeBoer. It's very much unclear right now.
And I was just looking at the schedule too. I mean, it feels weird to say this, but I honestly feel like maybe for the players, the coaches, obviously, most of the coaches weren't here. That second game against South Florida, of course, when we get Saban Field,
Yeah.
there's got to be some of these Alabama players going to say, we played bad against this team last year. We need to kind of put our, show this team what we're capable of being. And also, poor South Florida, you're going to be there tonight that they're going to name the field after Nick Saban. So, you're pretty much in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that game last year was abysmal. Alex Golesh has quietly had quite a bit of success against Alabama throughout his career. But the thing I notice is they're doing the Saban Field presentation. They're dodging Western Kentucky for that. You get one of the great national powers with a real great journalism school coming in there. You got to move the ceremony to the South Florida game, but No, absolutely. It's that could be a fun game. It could be an especially fun game for Alabama, who I mean, that team they're going to want to beat South Florida with hammers. Like it's going to be there's going to be no taking South Florida lightly. I don't think in that locker room. No.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's weird. You beat them, but you still could be like a revenge game. But for them, yeah, I think people need to go to Matt's Twitter account, and you will see in the bio a mention of Western Kentucky. I'll leave it at that. So that probably led to that that
Great
great.
school.
Yeah, really good. Hey, they've had some really good quarterbacks come out of that school
They
too as
have,
well.
yeah. And I think Mike White is still in the league. Like there's some Bailey Zappi. It's yeah, they run some like funky air raid stuff, and so it's fun.
Now, some Alabama fans may not like Bailey Zappi because he pretty much helped kick Mac Jones out of New England. Because I
It's because Bailey Zappi had a better education in college. I'm telling you.
hey, I watched him play. I couldn't tell the difference between the two quarterbacks. It looked about the same. It looked about the same. I think Bailey Zappi was just a cheaper version of Mac Jones. And if any Alabama fans hear me say that and want to defend Matt Jones, hit me up at P Jordan SEC. I would love to talk to you. That Wisconsin game is going to be interesting for Alabama going up there. Of course, I know. Okay, I see this all the time. I know you've probably seen it too on social media. Alabama fans hate it when a couple years ago when they went to Texas, had to play at 11 o'clock Central Time, and now they're going to do that with here. But also, I try to tell Alabama fans it's on Fox. Fox puts their biggest game on at
Yeah.
11. That's what they do. But good thing that's going. But that's an interesting trip for Alabama. Something we didn't see before the expanded playoff.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think they've in recent years been trying to get away from just like playing one of those kickoff games in Atlanta, which I mean, very convenient if you're a beat writer. Just dip up to, slide over to Atlanta. It's what a 3-hour drive from Tuscaloosa, but I mean, it's just another high price ticket that those fans were having to buy every year. So they've gone to more home and home against quality opponents. This is one of those. Texas was one of those before that became a in conference game. They played a home and home that ended at Bryant Denny this year. And then they got another one. There's one against Ohio State coming up. They're going to go or play a home and home. I think West Virginia, maybe Florida State in there as well. So yeah, it's one of those, and I think it's a good thing. I like to see big games and home atmospheres. So and it's a if you're an Alabama fan wanting to make the trip, I've been to Madison before. It's a great time. Shockingly cool that time of year. It was actually the first college football game I ever covered in person. It was in Camp Randall because I was a junior at Western Kentucky at the time, and they were opening the season up there, I guess 2018. And we drove from Bowling Green, but you get out of the car there, it's like, holy smokes, it is not 97 degrees out here. That's pretty nice, and obviously, good food, plenty of places to drink if you get yourself to Madison. So, yeah, I think that'll be sort of a fun trip for all involved.
I guess the question is going to be: will it be close enough a game when we enter the fourth quarter that Wisconsin feels good about doing the jump around? Because that is one of the coolest things in
Yeah,
college
yeah,
sports, to
it's
jump
very
around.
cool. They do at A&M. They put like a piece of paper at your spot in the press box, like telling you that during the Aggie War hymn, like the press box is going to shake. And there you feel okay about it because I mean they talk all about it's an engineering school. Like you're pretty sure the press box can survive. Wisconsin, the press box shakes during jump around, and there's not really any warning of that. But I mean, it's so cool in person. Like the whole place really does shake. It's again, it's one of those traditions that if you're an Alabama fan, you probably haven't seen a whole lot of, but you sort of can get the chance to experience this year.
And just kind of looking over the rest of the schedule. Of course, they have the matchup. We talked about Georgia on the 28th, so they have a week off. I like the teams having 2 weeks off the way just the calendar landed. It extends the season longer.
Mhm.
Teams playing the same amount of games, but we get an extra week of football, it seems like. Of course, they'll go to Tennessee on the 19th, go to LSU on the 9th of November, close out at Oklahoma, and then playing Auburn. When you look at the schedule, what's probably the biggest challenging parts of it, in your opinion?
Oh boy, I'm gonna do what is terrible radio and pull that up right in front of me. Uh, there's the few things that come to mind. I mean, that Wisconsin game right off the bat, it's gonna be fun. That Wisconsin Georgia um, back to back, I think will be fun because I is that Kirby's first time coming back to Tuscaloosa?
It's got to be, yeah. Because I think the only time they've played has been either the SEC championship game or in the national. I don't think Alabama and Georgia have had a regular season matchup since.
Yeah, no, it's that's a good one. I think wasn't somebody said this on our AL.com podcast that we got going on today, but I believe Saban's first loss at Alabama was like a overtime game against Georgia. So
Matthew Stafford, Matthew Stafford.
yeah, that
I
boy,
remember.
that was a good Georgia team that kind of got boned by being in the same division as a better Florida team for a few years there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they were.
that's gonna be a big one. You go to Tennessee and then it goes Tennessee, Missouri, um, and then at LSU. That's a big stretch right there. I think the Missouri team is going to be really good, and going to both Knoxville and Baton Rouge. I mean, they lost both times they went. The last time they went to both of those places in 22, so that'll I think be a pretty telling stretch as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun ride for them without a doubt. Now, looking at now, you said you don't do them, but the media predictions had Alabama at 3, and honestly, I mean this, and this is not a shot at Alabama either. I was thinking they might be 4th because it seems when we look at all the preseason magazines, it's generally Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss,
Yeah,
Alabama. And I don't think in the preseason magazine it's necessarily because they think Ole Miss is going to be better than Alabama. It's just because look at the Ole Miss schedule.
yeah.
It's an easy.
They don't
It's an
play
easy.
Alabama this year.
No, they don't. I mean, don't play. I mean, I know Auburn 6-7 last year. They don't play Auburn. It's just kind of weird, just to kind of
Yeah.
seeing so. But it's number 3 Alabama. Do you think that seems just right? Is that where you would have put them, or?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think it's sort of a I mean, if you're Lane Kiffin, you got to show it this year, right? Like if you're gonna turn Ole Miss into a real serious contender, which I mean, I just don't know if they've got it in them there. That's a really really hard place to win games consistently, just from a bunch of issues. But yeah, I mean, Alabama third sounds about right. Georgia and Texas ahead of them. Those are both really, really good teams, proven coaching staffs, a lot of talent coming back. Both, returning quarterbacks in both of those places. So, yeah, I mean, I think Georgia was probably. I mean, Georgia. Let's put it this way: like, if Alabama comes in with an Iron Bowl loss and still beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, there's a world where Georgia still slides into the playoff, right?
Mhm.
Uh, like they were that good last year and just kind of slipped up in the SEC championship game. Like that's a really really good team. I don't have any problem with either of those teams being ahead of Alabama. Nor do I don't know, like you could make an argument for LSU maybe. You could make an argument for Ole Miss being ahead of Alabama, but I don't think I'm not bent out of shape about either of those teams not getting ahead of them either.
Yeah, and thanks for reminding the Auburn audience part of the show about the Alabama and the Iron Bowl. I'm sure they were happy about that. Another one I was shocked by because I would have put LSU over Missouri. I want to get your thoughts on that. But I'll just kind of seem like Missouri's been a hot team. People are really high on them coming to the year. My biggest question with Missouri, I just wonder about the running game, Cody Schrader not being there. That was so much of what their offense was about. They can't do the running game. I kind of wonder how that impacts Brady Cook, Luther Bird, and them
Yeah.
guys. How are you on that, on those two being there at LSU at 5, Missouri at 6?
LSU is interesting to me because it feels like the vibes have changed a little bit around like Brian Kelly there. Like he had a Heisman winning, had a Heisman quarterback last season, and I mean they won the ReliaQuest Bowl. Like, that's not getting anybody excited. Like, you are supposed to win at least one national championship as a LSU coach. I mean, if Les Miles can do it, like surely Brian Kelly, who had Notre Dame right there a couple of times, objectively harder program to win at, like surely he could go win a national championship in Baton Rouge. But it doesn't feel like it's going to happen this season. It didn't happen last season, even with the Heisman quarterback. Like I don't know. At some point, it's going to be like at some point I think they're going to tire of him because he's not the sort of program fan base fit that Ed Ogeron was, and they ran Ed Ogeron out of town like pretty quickly, even after what I'd argue was the greatest college football team of all time came through there. So that's an interesting angle to me. I don't have a whole ton of thoughts about like what they're going to be this season. Mizzou, I don't know if it like Luther Burden could also be a Heisman candidate this season.
Yeah, he's really good.
Like he's unbelievable. I don't know how much you've been playing the video game. I've been devoting a shocking amount of time to it, unfortunately. But like Luther Burden was born to be a video game character. Like he's that kind of just game-changing talent on the field. So I offense, I don't think is a big question there. You also get like Theo Weiss back, Brady Cook is back, so they got plenty of talent on that side of the ball, and I think they're smart enough to figure out what they're doing there. Defense, losing Blake Baker to LSU, I think that's probably not a great thing. The season I covered him, he really turned that defense around using pretty much a lot of the same personnel from the year before. They were awful under Steve Wilk running it that season, but they lose Tyron Hopper. I think they lose Ennis Rakestraw. I believe Chris Abrams Drain is also gone. So a lot of talent going on defense. So that's more of my question mark with Mizzou.
Final question: who are these two people that gave Vanderbilt 2 first place votes?
Man, I don't know. That joke was funny the first year people did it. It stopped being funny. It's time to stop with the Vanderbilt like protest vote. Like at least be creative. I see one South Carolina vote on here. Like the first time the Vanderbilt thing happened, like to me it seems like somebody just like got their wires crossed and threw everything in reverse. But last year like 6 people did it. It's like, come on. Like, not only are you not that funny, you're also unoriginal. So it's time to stop there.
It's almost funnier if just one person does it, but when multiple people do it, then it becomes okay. Y'all are all trying to. I don't know. So yeah, it was pretty funny, but yeah. So Matt, it's been fun having you on. We kind of jumped all over the place. I feel like I told you off the air. I was like, I did not write many notes because I feel like we could just do this, have a conversation, talking ball, and it's gonna be a fun season. I can't wait. I played the video game a little bit on Friday. I don't have a system, but I did play. It is great. It is great on there. Me and a buddy had a game. We played Ohio State versus Michigan. I played as Ohio State. He played Michigan. We had a combined 14 interceptions in the game.
Just didn't quite figure out that passing mechanic, huh? Did you?
Well, I'm kind of hard-headed. I like to throw it deep even if it's covered up. He was Michigan. He had like 3 or 4 pick sixes in the game.
Wow.
I had none. All my touchdowns were me driving down the field. Then we went to overtime. He gets the ball first. He throws it in the end zone. I intercept it and run it all the way back. So,
yeah. No, I've just been playing with all the goofy offenses. Like I've been doing Wake Forest with like the Dave Clawson RPO thing he does over there. I've done a little Tennessee where you can set it just like the extra wide splits and go to town. I've been having a lot of fun with the military academies too. Although I say this, I've been playing online, been losing a lot online. It feels disrespectful for somebody to like be hitting the gritty at West Point after after picking up a fumble. Like I understand it's a video game, but like this might be like the old man take. But I don't know. I probably would not do that.
Something tells me if one of those players did that for real, they would be in some massive trouble at Army and Navy. And I guess I'll close on this with you. I feel like the game has really helped people be excited for the upcoming season.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it's a big, like, just sort of cultural thing that, I mean, people have begged and begged and begged for it for years. And like the fear was always like, oh, Madden sucks. Like Madden's a terrible video game now. It's all about like just this money making. The gameplay's awful. So I mean, the college football game was just coming in with just impossible expectations, because even, I mean, I'll say, like, NCAA 14 was not a perfect video game. It just was the last of a great series. So people kind of built it up in their head to be this like you were never going to hit those expectations, but they did. Like, it's almost better than you thought it was going to be. Like, it plays so well. I've not got that deep into Dynasty, but like the recruiting and stuff is so good. And it's just, yeah, it brings back sort of the feeling of, being however old you were in 2014, just playing with your buddies back. So part of it's the nostalgia play too. It's like, 2014, I was like 16 years old. So yeah, I had a lot less responsibilities in those days and a lot more just free time to play a college football video game. But yeah, it's a great thing to have hit right before kind of we go into camp and then the season starts. Just like this fun thing, the whole kind of college football internet can do together.
Yeah, it's just awesome having the players' names. You don't have to go in and fix it
Yeah.
yourself and
Or like
everything else.
send the memory card like off to somebody you met on the internet to like plug the names into. Yeah, you don't have to do any of that. It's very nice.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm going to try to get some more gameplay in before we do get to the season. And Matt, it's been fun again having you on talking just Alabama and all things college football. Where can the listeners and viewers follow you if they want to follow you online?
Matt Stahl 97 over on the artist formerly known as Twitter. And yeah, obviously AL.com. All the coverage can be over there.
All right, sounds good. Everybody go check out Matt's work covering the Crimson Tide. And Matt, hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
.96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows. Like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits 106.7 KMX, Today's Country 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7, Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
All right. And thanks to Matt Stahl for coming on. A lot of fun there. We probably were planning 15, 20. We went a good 30 minutes just chatting ball, and it was a lot of fun having him on the show. I want to go over some quick things with Auburn, Troy, and Florida State, just everything going on right now. Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze spoke to the media last Thursday. Now, I wrote up an article for Last Word on College Football. You can go check that out. On that, and I'll be using some more quotes from Auburn's appearance at SEC Media Days for some future articles as well. But just kind of some things that really stuck out that Hugh Freeze said in some of these sessions there. Talked a lot about Peyton Thorne. And look, Peyton Thorne is the key, in my opinion, for Auburn having a great year for them. I do believe Auburn has the ceiling of 9-3 regular season. And you win your bowl game, you're 10-3. I don't think Auburn's going to be in the playoff. But I do think with the pieces they put around him at receiver, the running backs they have, improved offensive line, I think the defense will be a solid group. Secondary is going to be a question mark going in just because of the inexperience and the players they lost last year. But Peyton Thorne is just good. He doesn't make mistakes. He just plays point guard, puts the ball to the playmakers, he can be good. And as Hugh Freeze has brought up many times, and he brought it up at media days last week, Peyton Thorne, when he has good players around him, we remember when he had Kenneth Walker, Keon Coleman, in 21 at Michigan State, he was a really good quarterback, one of the best in the Big Ten. They now have talent around him again. And look, Rivaldo Fairweather, that's going to be a go-to guy. But now with all these receivers, that takes the pressure off of him. Defenses can't just, shift their defense to Rivaldo, and now they can have a more wide open attack. That is going to be big things. So Peyton Thorne, he's key. There's really no one behind him, a lot of experience. Walker White, Hank Brown, Holt Garner. So it's all on Peyton Thorne. He's the key. But if he plays like he did in 21, when he had more talent around him than he's had the last 2 seasons, his last year at Michigan State in 2022, and then last year at Auburn in 2023, I really see where Hugh Freeze is going out. I believe that is the case. But again, Peyton Thorne plays did last year, maybe 7-5-8-4, but 9-3 is possible. Especially you open your first 5 at home, Alabama and A&M. You got Cal, you got New Mexico, and you got Arkansas. Again, I think Arkansas is going to coach by midseason. I think Bob Petrino will be the interim. Then you host Oklahoma. They beat Oklahoma. Of course, they play Georgia the following week, and then in the month of October, they also have visits Missouri and Kentucky. I think I would mark Georgia as a loss, but when I look at Kentucky, Missouri, I think those are games Auburn can win. And then you have some matchups with A&M. Of course, you end it with Alabama. So I just say Vanderbilt's on the schedule too. I just see this as a deal where Auburn can get to 9 wins this year. He talked about receivers. Obviously, I just kind of mentioned some of them, or talked about the receiver position. He talked about how need to play. They're going to expect some things, especially out of Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Bryce King, Malcolm Simmons. They're going to need to step up. The new guys, Robert Lewis, Keandre Lambert-Smith, those are going to be guys that Auburn's going to look ahead. And again, as I said, Rivaldo Fairweather, with those talented receivers around him, there's going to be more openings for Fairweather to exceed here, and it should be big stuff for Auburn. And then he talked about the run game being the strength. They've made the offensive line better. And you got Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, and Jeremiah Cobb. Prayers are going out Brian Petit as he is recuperating and rehabbing, just everything he's went through beyond football. Just, I hope he continues heading in a good direction. He did talk about Damari Alston being more the leader of that group. He's more vocal than Jarquez. Jarquez is more leads by his play on the field, but Damari Alston, nothing but great things to say about him. We know what we've seen out of Jeremiah Cobb, and of course, with the offense line, Auburn running the ball. That's going to be big. And now that you have receivers on this team that can make big plays down the field one-on-one, you're not going to be able to creep at the line of scrimmage and shut down Auburn run as easily if that is the case. Again, goes back to Peyton Thorne. And he was asked about who was going to take the Jalen Simpson role. He talked a lot about Jaron Thompson going to go into that role. And then, of course, Keontae Scott is moving over to corner like we've all known since the end of last season. ACC kickoff is going on this week as well. Florida State talked earlier in the week. Just a few things by Mike Norvell. Talked about the confidence in DJU, who quarterback coming in, of course, transfer Oregon State, used to play Clemson. He said the confidence in his rhythm and timing, and he's also really confident in what he's doing. He's doing what they're asking him to do. I see a big year for him. And he also talked about the wide receivers at Florida State. Malik Benson, of course, one of them from Alabama. He said wonderful flashes. We saw that there in the spring game, if you watched the Florida State spring game. And saying this about Florida State, we know all the talent they lost. Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, all them guys. They did a good job in the portal bringing in guys offensively that should be good. Rodell Williams, running back from Alabama, I see him doing big things too. So Florida State's got talent there. Defense should be good as well for the Noles this year. They're my favorite to win the ACC. That's just my opinion. I don't see out of Clemson because they just don't have the playmakers on the outside that they used to. And then the Sun Belt's having their stuff, but Detroit stuff is not happened yet as of this recording of this show. So we may jump some more into that next week. We'll just see. But they did release the media picks for the Sun Belt. Troy is predicted to finish second in the Sun Belt West behind Texas State. Texas State's got a really good team coming back, and they bring in transfer quarterback from James Madison, Jordan McLeod. and it just Troy's got a lot of questions. How's they look at quarterback? With Goose Crowder, replacing Kamani Vidal, and then on defense they've got Javon Solomon, just to name one player. Richard Jubinort, a lot of the guys that are not going to be there. They have a lot to replace, a lot of unknowns with the Troy team. So we'll see what happens with Jared Parker in his year one at Troy. So I want to get through those real quickly. Some little news items there. We'll jump into some more college football talk next week on the show. That's going to do it for me. I appreciate you guys checking it out. If you haven't listened to it yet, go listen to the Wiregrass High School Football Report. I'm joined by Rehoboth head coach Toby Green. Had a lot of fun talking to Coach Green. We'll be back with that one on Monday with another great episode. And also more of this, the Phillip Jordan Show next week as well. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Check it out on YouTube as well. You can email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com and check out my written work at Last Word on college football. Everybody had a great week. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.